Welcome to Arch and Towers. David Freezer here, alongside Michael Bailey, to talk all the latest Norwich City issues after Moritz Leitner's signing, of course, last night. As our esteemed colleague, Mr. Chris Wise, said, "Let there be Leitner."
Let there be Leitner. So. Top work, that on the back of all the papers today.
It is. It's through the door, and of course, the man alongside me brought you that news Sunday night, wasn't it?
It was Sunday night. Yeah, it was my day off,
and it was something that Norwich fans have been hoping for, really, haven't they, since the end of last season? Not something we were certain that would happen until recently, but I think it's generally been a really positive reaction to it, to the deal being completed, isn't it?
Yeah, generally, definitely. I think a lot of people are really excited about it. I think as much in what we hope Morris will do in terms of kicking on and what the dynamic will be without James Maddison. I know Paddy as well felt that at times last season Morris and James were getting a little bit in each other's way, and literally like no, that doesn't work. Whereas opposed to when it was Maddison and Pritchard, there was a really lovely dynamic that actually had an end product to it. They operated slightly different spaces and seemed to be able to play off each other a lot better. So with Maddison going, which is of course a big shame, but probably the reality. The fact that they've signed Moritz Leitner, a player who does have superb quality, doesn't carry the same goal threat, I'd probably add, but he does carry a huge amount of quality with the ball, and I know he didn't get any assists, but created so many chances that Norwich couldn't take. I think that, and that for what, £1.5 million, certainly well under two. I think it's a fantastic piece of business. When they, as someone, I can't remember who it was, pointed out on Twitter as well, they sold Marley Watkins for. I would probably say they sold Marley Watkins, I think, for the same fee, very close to the Norwich had just paid out for Moritz Leitner. I mean, come on. Yeah,
interesting when you put it like that. But I think the sort of note of caution with Moritz is that we haven't actually seen the results yet. I think we all saw enough. I mean, we did our report card series, didn't we? And I did the one on Leitner, and I said in that if it wasn't for the injury, we may well have seen the full Moritz Leitner, but we still haven't seen him in top gear at all. And I think the big thing now that everyone's looking forward to is that Daniel Farke has got a full pre-season with him, hopefully, touch wood, no injury problems, and if that happens, then we'll really see the best of Moritz Leitner. And it's the same for Tom Tribal, I think, because we saw two fairly lengthy injuries with Tom last year, didn't we, which kind of prevented his progress a bit, but we still saw stuff to get excited about. You remember what Daniel was talking about with Tom Tribal. What was it? Were it Brentford when he mentioned that Chelsea would be interested in Tom Tribal if he was fully fit and on form? So
always helps when you're negotiating a new contract. That sort of stuff.
Yeah, quite. And that's the other side of it with Leitner as well, isn't it? 4-year contract. That is commitment on the players' side and on the club's side. So I think everybody's pulling in the right direction on this one, and I haven't really seen any negative voices among the support on it.
No, I mean I have, if I'm honest. Yeah. I have seen some people who've gone, well, they feel he's a very typical Daniel Farke player, and of course those who are worried that Norwich aren't going to be robust enough, or they aren't going to have enough dynamism, they are worried that that's not necessarily going to work. I think a few people look at Moritz Leitner last season despite being hit by injury and think, I wasn't that impressed, to be honest. We only won one game when he played, and that sort of stuff. And I think that it does feed into this element, as you've just said, pre-season, getting him properly embedded in the squad, having a different squad around him, a different team of players, maybe not better. It might be a weaker squad, but that different dynamic, it's going to be a different opportunity for Morris next season. And I think you have to be open-minded about what can then happen as a result of that.
Well, set pieces would be interesting. I think it was
probably
he might
get to take one.
He might get to take one. I mean, he did get a couple, didn't he? But he didn't take those opportunities at all. And it was obviously Maddison felt he was in control of set pieces last year, and it was telling, I thought, on Leitner's Instagram that he was taking so many free kicks, of course, in his Norwich shirt. So it's
he hasn't got any other clothes. Do you know that? He literally left Norwich with a Norwich kit, and that was all he had. So it was all he could train in last season.
These poor footballers, they have to struggle through this summer, don't they? While they're on their holidays all around the world. So that's number 2 through the door, following on from Emi Buendia, which seems like old news to a certain extent now.
It's been a long summer already. Absolutely.
But they're back in pre-season, back at Colney. All the testing's underway, and first friendly's next Friday against Kings Lynn. When I guess we probably won't see Buendia at that point, will we? Might be a bit early, wouldn't it?
Well, I have a feeling, to be honest, that not everyone is back this week because some hung around to keep fit and what have you with World Cup hopes, although they didn't all come off, of course. Emi Buendia, interesting. I mean, his season, of course, finished really late, didn't it? I think Norwich didn't really want the news coming out until he'd finished his season wherever he was. My mind's got it was Getafe. He was on loan at Leonesa, wasn't he? That's right. So they had to wait for that to finish, which was I think a couple of weeks into June. So he's literally had no break, although he has been away on holiday, as we've seen from Instagram. So I think some of them will come back next week, which does then suggest that 4 days in and you get a run out might be too soon. It will be up to Daniel and how hard he's working them on these sessions. It's a nice way to bed them in, isn't it? They've got that game. You probably know the pre-season schedule better than I do.
So at the moment it's Kings Lynn next Friday, which is 6th of July, and then
Lincoln.
I think the following Tuesday is Lincoln.
Yes.
Then on the Thursday is Crawley.
Behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors at Colney. Yeah, so that's
hopefully we'll be there.
Hopefully. That's 2 League Two teams, of course. Then they've got the Germany tour, which I think the details still haven't yet been confirmed fully.
We are. We're pointing out we are trying to chase that with the club because I know a few fans have been in contact with me about what's going on. We don't know exactly the times and places and dates. I think the dates may have been sorted and the opposition, but the actual times and venues maybe not quite there. I'm pretty sure that if the club had it completely signed and sealed in terms of contracts, they will be confirming it all. So they're obviously a little bit wary. We all know what happened in Italy a few years ago. 4
years ago, wasn't it? Neil Adams. Yeah.
So
that was fun.
That's interesting. So we will keep pushing to obviously get it confirmed. I'm sure the club will want it confirmed as well. So it's not about having a dig, but the fans who want to book their trips. I mean, we're only talking 2 or 3, 4 weeks now, and things get pricier. Of course, the less notice you have. So hopefully that will get confirmed soon.
Yeah. But and beyond that, they come back and it's Luton and Charlton.
That's right.
So 2 League One teams, with Luton being promoted, and then of course away at Birmingham Saturday, August the 4th, when it all gets started for real. Before we get into the Facebook comments, there was a tweet we got.
Do you want to get stuck into that?
I think it was Andrew Nickerson, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said, with all the midfielders signed now and the changes, at this point, although obviously it's still early, who would we be playing in midfield?
What a question. Yeah.
Which is an interesting question, I thought. And while we were talking about Leitner then, I thought my mind went back to the different positions we saw him play. We saw him play in the deeper role alongside Alex Tettey when fit, I think at Hull, when it was going okay until he went off injured. And then on the other side of the coin, Sheffield Wednesday, when James Maddison went off, we saw him play in that number 10 role, and at first I thought he looked really lost until the second half, kind of when the damage was done by Wednesday, sadly. He started to look better, but I think opening day of the season for me, as much as Ben Godfrey is making progress, unless he really does tear it up in pre-season, it's still ideally for me Tom Tribal, Alex Tettey as the 2 holding midfielders, if we presume it's 4-2-3-1, and then from there I guess at this stage, before we've seen everyone, I would probably like to see Buendia, Leitner and Hernandez on the right.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I would imagine seeing. I think Buendia is worth bearing in mind as a kind of Pritchard replacement, so someone who isn't necessarily going to play as a 10, but slightly wider.
Wide, yeah.
Be nice.
Pritchard did that at Brentford quite a bit, didn't he?
He did, exactly, yeah, and he did that here as well. Obviously. So I think, seeing Leitner in the 10 is interesting. It'll be interesting whether Norwich play with a 10. I mean, they still might be tempted to have a sort of a front 3 that they tried a few times, and if you have the central pivot and then Hernandez wide, you could probably play Buendia wider of that, and then you're having 3 in the middle. That might be the sort of formation where Kenny McLean maybe comes more into his own, because we can't forget Kenny.
I did forget Kenny, didn't I?
Well, that's okay.
Now you say that, it seems a safer expectation that Kenny would start on the left ahead of Buendia on the opening day, I suppose.
Possibly. I mean, all these players have got to prove themselves, and they'll have Farker and Stuart Webber will have a very clear idea in their mind as to where they're going to fit into in terms of which formation. Tribal and Tettey, or Treble, and Tettey would be my 2 sort of deeper players, but with because that formation worked, and the only real issue we had last year was that Tom wasn't fit for enough of it. But it does kind of emphasise 2 points. One, the amount of competition, and two, I don't think we've named a single homegrown player in midfield there. And Norwich have got to name 7 in their squad next season, so they are going to have to bear those things in mind.
Well, personally, at this point, as I say, I think Alex Tettey will be starting the season, but my expectation, unless for some reason Ben Godfrey is allowed to leave on loan for Rotherham, I expect Ben Godfrey to have become the starting defensive midfielder by the end of the season, and that would obviously tick that particular box.
I think if he was still here, I would agree. And I think it was interesting talking to Ewan Chester, the old chief scout, the other day about Harry Kane, because his loan was not about, he turned up, got injured, didn't play, and it was rubbish. It was about, had he stayed fit, he would have become more apparent and had more of an effect once he'd been 2, 3, 4 months in. And there is that element, I think, with Ben Godfrey. He's ready for the Championship. No one at Norwich is going to dispute that. I know we probably disagree slightly if he gets loaned out, but if he gets loaned out, he's not going League One. It's only ever going to be Championship. That's obviously then another debate about where that fits in with Norwich. But you can see him, like you say, as the season progresses, him coming in and having a go there.
Well, I can see one side of Godfrey being allowed to let go, because we haven't even mentioned Stiepermann or Vrancic yet, and Vrancic certainly is going to be
right. Yeah,
I think Vrancic will probably, in my mind, I've got it as Tettey as the defensive midfielder, or Ben Godfrey, and then the other midfielder being Vrancic or Tribal as sort of the deep lying playmaker almost, and then you've got the mix that we've already spoken about in front of them. The question that's almost coming into my mind now is, will they play a striker? Will there be a striker? Could you
false nines.
We saw Daniel wanted to play like a 4-1-4-1 with 4 attacking midfielders. Could he play a 4-2-4?
You say that. I mean, I was just given the distinct impression at times, certainly last pre-season, that Daniel would have quite liked to have played Wes, Pritchard, Maddison, all together in a midfield 4. And I mean, it was those kind of thoughts that got them in all sorts of problems at Villa and Millwall, to be honest. So, we can all see the balance of who they're recruiting. I think we all hope that we're not going to suddenly find ourselves in a position where Daniel hasn't quite learned as much as we hoped he'd learned last season. I think no doubting the start of next season is going to be so crucial that they get a good one, because a lot of fans are not going to dilly around if they're getting hammered, and there's a naivety that we hoped they kind of got rid of. And to be honest, as the Sheffield Wednesday last day of the season was naive and poor in a lot of other ways, but that midfield of Tribal and Leitner screening never really looked like it was going to be strong enough, and obviously Maddison's injury played a big part as well. But we need to make sure we don't see a naive open side playing in the Championship next year from the start, because we should have learned that one about 10 months ago. So fingers crossed.
Well, Vrancic did learn that, but every game whether it was Vrancic or Reed in central midfield, I cringed because it wasn't strong enough, and similarly with Vrancic or Tribal, I think it needs to be one of Godfrey or Tettey in the team every week. And personally, I mean, it's not happened yet, so we're talking about a situation which hasn't happened.
That's the joy of the summer.
I don't want Ben Godfrey going anywhere.
No,
I don't think Norwich City are Chelsea. I don't think they can afford to be carrying players that they're loaning out to other Championship clubs. Likewise with Sean Raggett. If he's going to go out on loan to a top-end League One club or a Championship, certainly with a Championship club, then I just don't see that Norwich City are in the financial position to be carrying players like that. It's a lovely luxury to have, but I don't want to see Norwich players on loan at other Championship clubs.
I think the two situations are slightly different, because I think Sean Raggett hasn't played above League Two, so there was a whole load of room for him to go and prove himself at a lower Championship side or a League One side. And there's also a pathway that come next season, Tim Closer probably won't be here. That Norwich will need a centre back to throw in, and I think Raggett playing in League One or lower Championship, and getting a load of games that he wouldn't get here, I think that would be a real benefit to Norwich the following season. Ben Godfrey slightly different to a degree, because he's done League One, he's owned it, he's being touted, he's got a very good agent, he's being touted with some big clubs and big moves, so he's at a level ahead of Sean, and I do see them as differently. But of course, it'd be lovely if they both kicked on here, and both homegrown players. It'd save Norwich a bit of cash as well. Should we do some of these messages?
Yes, let's do it.
Paul Leach. Hello, Paul. Get your messages in. Let us know where you're watching from, because we're always jealous of that.
I presume everyone's at the Norfolk show, aren't they?
It should be, yeah. Yeah, it's not quiet, though, so I don't know what the Wi-Fi's like at the Norfolk show. Probably not. Not great. Paul Leach, is £6 million out of our price range for a striker? Yep.
Yep. I would say in isolation, they could afford one £6 million signing, just about, but they wouldn't be able to afford anything else, would they? So,
well, no,
that would be all your eggs.
And you'd probably sell Ben Godfrey for £3 million then to fund it. So no, I think they need to be smarter with their recruitment than Jack Marriott, who I assume.
And they've been upfront about that the whole way.
Yeah,
They've said that they're going to have to be creative with their signings this year, and that obviously comes down to finances.
And I think there's a degree of reading transfer speculation as well. So the Marriott stuff pops up with 3 or 4, 5 championship clubs linked. In that situation, I think you look at it and go, well, yeah. Can't see that happening. So
I can't see Marriott happening, and not unless they manage to persuade Swansea to come back with a 12 million bid for Nelson Oliveira, as they turned down
Good old Nelson.
12 months ago,
yeah,
or supposedly.
Well,
anyway.
Swansea bought someone else, so maybe it fell through. I think they got Wilfred Bonny back, didn't they? So
possibly, yes.
That might have been more tempting anyway.
Unless they magic up a lot more money, I cannot see them spending $6 million on a striker.
Like bankrupting themselves. John Davies, speak up a bit. It's a bit quiet. We'll try. Hopefully it's a bit better now. Ryan Shaw waves. That's always nice. I'm sure people are going to ask about the money, by the way, off the back of that, because they'll say, well, we've already earned £35 million in transfers.
It's difficult to sum that up in a Facebook chat without... I mean, these things are complex, aren't they? And to be fair, we have written at length about them, and we've tweeted those links various times, but to sum up finances, which are several blocks of accounts over several years, in one Facebook chat or in a tweet is just not possible, is it? It is a complex matter.
If the people ask for it, Dave, we will deliver.
It is out there.
If you want it, we'll give it to you.
The truth is out there.
Jay Sadler, glad to see Leitner back. Is there any more news on Naismith and contract termination? That's pretty drastic there, Jay. Also, any transfer links for another striker other than Jordan Rhodes and his £3 million loan fee? No, very quiet on strikers. There was the Cork striker that popped up yesterday.
Kieran Sadlier. He was described as an attacking midfielder,
exactly.
But he's scoring a lot of goals, isn't he? So
I initially assumed it was a striker, because I'm like, well, it's about time we saw one. So it has been quite quiet on strikers.
It has been quite quiet, really. I mean, Rhodes and Marriott being linked, but as we're saying, we don't think they're particularly realistic links. I think everyone's kind of aware that until or if Nelson Oliveira is moved on, there isn't really a great deal of flexibility up front, is there? So we'll see. But Kieran Sadlier, he's a 23-year-old. He was on the books at West Ham when he was younger and has sort of taken the long road and ended up in Ireland. He's now playing for the Irish champions Cork, and I think it was 12 goals in 20 games he scored this season, described as an attacking midfielder. And there's a video at PinkUn.com which shows him last month scoring from his own penalty area, about 80 metres.
Yeah,
one of the two
yards,
a distance,
a
long distance. Against St Pat's in injury time when their goalkeeper had gone forward. So he's obviously got a bit of a... For those of you who like rugby, Elliot Daly is the man in the England team with the massive kick. He's obviously the sort of football equivalent to that. But whether there's anything in that, we shall see. At the moment, it's just Norwich scouting. But what we do know is that Norwich have made inroads to Ireland in recent years, because they signed Adam Ida last summer from College Corinthians, who are also in Cork. Simon Power as well for the under-23s in January. He was from University College Dublin.
Knowledge.
So they are definitely watching Ireland.
And they played in Ireland last summer. Remember that much. Good old Cov.
That's where it all started.
It was where it all started.
Some decent players here.
Yeah, hello. And of course, Jay mentions Naismith. Contract termination. I don't know if this is might be a little bit of an exclusive. I do think Norwich have tried to discuss that with Stephen in terms of just paying it up, and it didn't really. And I don't think it has saved Norwich much money. Hearts do want him on loan,
definitely.
But but you're talking, say, I don't know, 30% of his wages you'd be saving. I think it's not frustrating, because if you're going to pay that money anyway, could you use Stephen in some way? But there doesn't really seem like an appetite for that.
I think
fascinating situation, that one.
We can be fairly confident we won't be seeing Stephen Naismith in a Norwich shirt in pre-season. I would have said.
Well, in the season, I think pre-season different, because if you get him playing and he does impress, then you've got a chance then to get him out to another club.
It's just for the sake of it, though, isn't it? Everyone knows he's going, so is he part of the team? Personally, if I was the manager, if I knew that player wasn't going to be part of my plans, I just wouldn't want him involved at all. I would find some way, but it's like you say, it's not easy. Stephen, if you're Naismith, you wait until the final day of the transfer window and get your absolute maximum value, don't you? Get as much of the money that Norwich owe you because they agreed that contract with you, and just say to Hearts, hang on, I'll be up there soon. Get on
the phone to Stevie G. Steve, that's what I would say. Get on the phone to Gerard. He'll give you a shout. Dan Mayhew, hello from sunny Utrecht on my holidays. Happy holidays, Dan. Thanks for joining us on your holidays. You think we'll make up the homegrown numbers from the under-23 players from last year? Well, possibly on the bench where needed, but I to be honest, I think they'll have enough to. Yeah,
once we've got loans. We're expecting that any Premier League loans that come in to tick that box, aren't we? So, say you get a striker, I've picked a name out of the air, but the lad Armstrong at Newcastle, for instance, who is an English qualified player, isn't he? He's probably one who'd be looking for a Championship loan. And then you've either got Remy Matthews in goal or another Angus Gunn type player. Who's the other lad at Newcastle? Freddie Woodman is the goalkeeper who's been linked, isn't he? Who won the World Under-20 Cup with England. So, that's two. You've got Jamal Lewis. Grant Hanley counts as one because he was registered at Blackburn as a youngster, wasn't he? And then obviously you've got substitutes. So to hit that 7 with one of them being an academy registered player, again in that 7 that I've just named, Remy Matthews and Jamal Lewis both tick that box. So it's not that difficult to do, is it? Even if you end up sticking an Adam Phillips or so, or someone like that on as your 7th man on the bench, and he gets experience.
It's an interesting one with the loan window as well, because don't forget that the permanent signing window for Premier League clubs and EFL clubs ends on August the 9th, so after the opening weekend of the season. So then no clubs in England can buy anyone permanently, but from that point on, I think, is when teams will look at trying to recruit loan players. I think there might be a case of waiting until then for those to get sorted. So it might be that it comes later in the window that Norwich can do those loan deals.
But also, what everyone is a little bit wary of, I think you made this comment as soon as it was announced, 6 months ago or whatever, is that teams that want players will just negotiate a loan, which will become a transfer in January, and that's pretty much what, in a much bigger scale, PSG did with Mbappe when they signed him from Monaco, wasn't it?
Oh, we touted him the other day on the podcast, didn't we? We thought, he's not proven in the Championship.
He'll do.
He could do a job possibly. Spencer Copland. We seriously have to spend money on players who can do a job in this division, because with the current crop of the squad, we are not in contention even for the playoffs. Out of transfer fees in the last year, we have raked in £59 million. It's very true, but I do, and what I've always said is that Norwich's tariff of achieving success is a lot harder in some ways, because they are trying to be creative and recruit players that they can afford. Let's be perfectly frank about it. That money they've raked in is to keep the club afloat because of the wages they're still paying out for players like Stephen Naismith, Matt Jarvis. They are still paying out Premier League wages to a handful of players, and they've got a £20-odd million hole in revenues because parachute payments have stopped. So that's where the money goes. It's keeping the club afloat.
It's also instalments on previous transfers, isn't it?
And there's a backlog and all that sort of stuff as well. So that's why we're going to hope that their players like Norwich took to Championship and Premier League promotion in those days under Paul Lambert, and that's hard, but it's achievable. And I think you can see from other Championship clubs, they are tightening their belts, even the ones who do have wealthy owners and have shelled out a lot of money.
We're just talking about Bristol City, weren't we? And they've just sold Adam Flint to Middlesbrough for, I think it was something like $7 million, who very highly rated defender, scored a lot of goals, and also their top scorer last season, Bobby Reid, looks like he's going to join Josh Murphy at Cardiff. So they're another club, a bit like Derby and Villa, who look like they're tightening their belts, aren't they?
Barry Cochrane, bearing in mind the funding gap that needed plugging with the sales, what do you think is this summer's actual transfer budget?
That's fluid, isn't it?
It'd be guesses. What I would say is there's probably been a 1 or 2, 3, 4 million maybe around now, given that the holes they've all plugged, and then the others they sell, they can reinvest as well. Nelson Oliveira will be a big sale because he's on a shed load of money, I think, and they'd still want a pretty decent transfer fee from him. But if that interest isn't there, then you can't.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. Callum Smith, anything on Jack Marriott? Yeah, we've basically ruled it out. Sorry, Callum. Billy,
unless they get a load of money for Nelson Oliveira from someone who doesn't watch highlights from last season.
Yeah, quite. Billy Pointer, any news or info about chances of Reed coming back? I've still said it numerous times. I can't see it. I think he'll look for a different challenge, and it certainly won't be buying him.
No, I don't. I went quite early on this, and that I don't really want him back. I don't think he did enough. I just think he's a really, really nice lad, team player. I think that he was popular, but I don't think he was an out-and-out right back, and I don't think he was particularly good in central midfield. So for me, for the money you'd have to pay to get him permanently, he's not somebody I'd be considering.
Certainly don't need any midfielders, I have to say. And the one person we didn't mention actually earlier is Louis Thompson, who is back. We're desperately hoping he'll be back and playing and proving himself. A big task for him, of course, but he is fit this pre-season. So I've most definitely got my fingers crossed for Louis because he's such a top man, and he deserves some game time.
May need a loan, I suppose. I saw a few Swindon fans online hoping that he might be able to come back.
That'd be a great shout. That'd be a great shout. Dan Emery, did Leitner not set up Kloster's goal against Sheffield Wednesday? Yes, but it was deflected. Didn't really count as an official assist. I think that's right on the old stats. Dave Clark, any news on a goalkeeper? Well, we're still expecting Remy Matthews to be
Michael McGovern was at training yesterday, wasn't he? He had his bag and his boots. So.
I imagine he will be looking hard for a move.
Possibly,
so but get some game
he's
time.
Never going to get the wages that he's currently on, is he? Anywhere else, he fortunately had Alex Neil here to bring him down to England and give him a nice contract. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong in that, because Michael McGovern was at the time Northern Ireland's, and still is, Northern Ireland's number one, and Northern Ireland were getting praise from every angle, weren't they, for what they did at Euro 2016 or just for qualifying. And he kept something like, was it 7 international clean sheets in succession? So this guy's no mug, and he's got a lot of experience, but it's just his decision perhaps financially, because he's never had a contract as big as the one he's got, and he's never going to get another one like it, I wouldn't have thought.
That's true indeed. Dave Clark, any news on a goalkeeper? I'm glad you asked this, Dave, because apparently Leeds are quite close to concluding their goalkeeper search, and in the words of Alan Nixon, who likes a tweet, he has said that it's definitely not going to be Angus Gunn.
Shock.
So that's interesting. Although I think they were closer than we might have suspected.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Angus will be a really interesting one, because I think Man City will want that tidied up before the start of July. So we're getting quite close to that now, and I don't know where it'll be, but we'll all be keeping our eyes out peeled for where he does end up. Ian Timbers, strikers, need some of those. Duo U, I like Vrancic and Leitner in front of Tribal.
Vrancic and Leitner in front of Tribal.
Not sure it's going to be screening much. That would be my only worry. What about Campwell, says Harry Bowker-Jones. What about Todd? Interesting. He's one, probably a bit like Ben Godfrey and Remy Matthews. They have the chance to really prove they're ready to compete. But there's a lot of competition with Todd. I know he likes a tweet, doesn't he, Todd?
He likes his Insta.
If someone tells him he likes that as well. Hashtag TC36. But he clearly wants a chance here. Whether he'll get that, I think, is a different matter.
I think he's really going to have to tear it up in pre-season to force his way in. But we know Fortuna Sittard loved him. They would have him back, even though they've been promoted to the top flight in Holland.
Well,
If not, I really can't see them struggling to get a League One move. And Todd's got time on his side. I think his contract is technically up at the end of next season at the moment, but they do have an option on him. So there's a little bit of comfort there. But I think if he can't force his way in pre-season, and he really would have to be sort of Maddison-esque, wouldn't he, to force his way into the team at this point, then League One would seem a good shout.
Good point on his contract, because given what Norwich did with Maddison last season and how they've gone about things, I think they like to reward a little often. It wouldn't at all surprise me if they've wanted to give Todd a new contract, so maybe that'll be something we'll see. You'd like to think that that's the sort of thing that Todd would be, yes please, that would be
well,
you'd
good,
like to
and
think.
Then
can kick on, and I'd loan in the Eredivisie I think would be fantastic, top flight.
It would, but he may just be a little reticent to sign on unless he's got any guarantees about that. But then Stuart Webber does like to plan ahead, like you were saying with Braggett, doesn't he? So if he says, you're very much in our team 2019-20 plans, then that might be enough. So far we've got
long game.
I have got the list in front of me. Deolan Giassimi has gone to Yeovil in League 2. Mason Bloomfield, who has never really been a Norwich player yet.
He came and he's gone again.
He's gone to Hamilton, Scottish Premiership. That seems a good loan move if he gets game time, like Carlton Morris did. And Savas Morgus, Greek midfield for the under-23s. He has done what Todd did, and he has gone to Dordrecht in the Dutch second tier.
Yeah, indeed. And he started to kick on at the end of last season. So
he did, yeah. Matt Gill in one under-23s game described him as reminding him of Wes Hoolahan, no less.
Good old Gilly.
So that is
won't
high
stick.
praise.
That won't stick. Jonathan Dye, same thing as last year. Lots of midfielders, nothing up front yet. He does have the yet. Well done, Jonathan. Paul Leach, thank you guys. He's in Lincoln, packing to come back to Norfolk after 4 years of uni. Moving back, Paul. Welcome back when you get here. Ken Katz, he's watching from Colombia. MD. Do you know what MD is? Testing your US knowledge.
I see. Massachusetts?
I feel like
Columbia.
I should know. MD. MD. Somewhere in the States. Hopefully. Anyway, thanks, Ken. Hoping to see the squad at Rotherham in March with my son during spring break. Good stuff, Ken. Let us know. We'll get you on the show, the PinkUn show. Maryland, is it? Mr. Lakey's found out Maryland. We knew.
He definitely didn't Google it either.
MD. Well, yeah, it's the start and finish. I'll give that. Tom Carlton, are we finally going to shift Martin, Naismith and Jarvis, or is the wage issue the key to this? Certainly was discussed. Stephen Naismith, I imagine he will go out on loan. Russ is an interesting one. Yeah, I don't know. I imagine he will go somewhere for some game time next season as well. And Matt Jarvis needs probably quite a big pre-season for him, because if he can show he can actually kick a ball on a football pitch and not get injured, then it could be a chance for him to get loaned out. But again, I don't know how much it would actually save Norwich, because how much is someone going to willing to? Well,
if he's not involved in pre-season, then it's going to be very difficult for Norwich to get anybody interested in a loan or anything, isn't it? So he's got a year left in his contract. So does Russ. So does Naismith.
Yes, indeed. So, that's why come next summer, people going, oh, we're just going to sell all our players every year. Next summer is a clean slate, and what Norwich have done this window has helped them prepare so that they don't have any real legacy debts, as far as I know, to get sorted next summer. So it will be a different situation. This is like the last push in a way, and hopefully we can then stop going on about how they're millions of pounds in debt.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are getting a bit sick of the financial discussions, aren't they? There was I saw a bit of bickering on Twitter yesterday, or for the last 3 years, about finances, and I think people are frustrated that you can't just talk about the football at times. But like you say, once we hit next summer, then the pressure is off to an extent. But equally, the board haven't slashed wages and spent less because they want to. They want Norwich in the Premier League and spending the sort of fees that they were spending in the past. When they signed Ricky and Tim Closer and all these players that they spent big money on, they wanted them to be successes, didn't they? It's they want Norwich City to be stable in the Premier League. They've been open about that since the new regime came in as well. But they had to be honest with everyone and say that it's going to take time, and that has proved to be the case.
Exactly, and Norwich are incredibly lucky, really, to be honest, that they had James Maddison, that he was fit, and that they could sell him in one big hit. You look at, say, Manuel Lanzini, who's done his knee and he's going to be out for 15 months. That's a massive blow for West Ham. If that, heaven forbid, had happened to James Maddison, Norwich would have been selling players to the equivalent value of 20 million quid to keep afloat. I mean, that would have ripped apart the squad. It would have been a serious issue. So, as long as, and people can be disappointed about this, that and the other, but you have to also be realistic about the circumstances they were playing.
I remember being sat in the press box at Hillsborough on the final day. It wasn't even that long ago now, was it? Was it 2 months? Yeah,
lifetime.
And our colleagues from Radio Norfolk, Chris Gore and Rob Butler, packing up, and Rob came over and said, "Are you all right?" And he could just see that I was I was seeing the worst with Maddison, and I could just see it all falling apart. I thought he was going to, or I was worried that it was going to be a year out or something, and that all the transfer policy was going to be blown out of the water. And he said, "You're still shaking your head, aren't you?" But thankfully, that wasn't where we went.
Don't get us wrong, that you don't want to be in that position, and I don't think anyone down the road wanted to be in that position where they were relying on that one it was like situation that could have gone so wrong. So.
It was like a grenade had been chucked into the transfer kitty.
It's not. It's
And they
not.
managed to get the pin back in it in time.
It's never ideal. James Kent, hello James. Given the choice, would you rather spend £3 million loan fee, circa 40 grand a week on Rhodes, or buy a striker from a second-tier German Holland side for 2 to 3 million and half the wages? Whichever one scores more goals. I don't know. I think it's a lot of money for a loan player for 12 months.
There's no way I'd pay the 3 million if that's what they're saying that Wednesday want for Jordan Rhodes. There's no way I'd be happy with Norwich paying that.
The interesting thing about Jordan Rhodes is that's what Wednesday are asking for now. Come the end of August, when everyone's gone, well, that's stupid, and it's 1.5 million or $1 million, it might be different. So we'll have to watch this space. It's not that it's not going to happen, but clearly at the moment it's not going to happen, and someone might be stupid enough to pay that amount. You don't know. Tom Carlton, is Adam Ida going to be breaking into the first team this season, in your opinion? They like him. He's really highly rated as well, so he'll be an interesting one, especially with Carlton out.
He's got to step up to under-23s first, really, hasn't he? Because he only had a few tastes of that, and I don't think he scored at that level either. So I would imagine that for Adam and Anthony Spyro, who both did well in the Youth Cup team last year, and I think were both second-year scholars off the top of my head, will now be looking to kick on with the 23s and get that professional. Oh no, Anthony Spyro's already signed a professional contract, and Adam Ida, I guess, signed professional terms last summer, but obviously youth deals we don't get full details on that all the time, do we? So it's certainly one to keep an eye on. Maybe he could be pushing for a loan from January onwards, but you've also got Tristan Abrahams, Pierre Fonkeu there, so there's several lads who are going to be keen for a loan if it's available. Yep,
spot on indeed. But he has been training, I think, with the first team. He did do a bit of training with the first team last season, didn't he?
Yeah, he's clearly a talented lad, and I also don't think he's going to be one that's going to be willing to sit around for too long.
No, he's already called it a big season for himself on Instagram. It was interesting, at the end of season dinner, Adam Ida picked up a couple of awards in the academy, and Delia said, hurry up, because she obviously wants him involved in the first team. So there you go. If Delia wants him in the first team, no one argues with Delia. Lewis Plummer, Danny Ings would be a great loan signing. Can't see him wanting to drop down. Wages would be a problem. Yeah, wages would indeed be a problem. Alan Nixon, he's busy tweeting. A few people have said they would like Sam Byram at Norwich, and they could do with the right back. Sounds like he's off to Forest on loan.
Yeah, who are spending a bit of money, aren't they?
They are going to be. They're going to be proper.
Danny Ings has no chance. He's on 60 grand a week. I wouldn't imagine he'd even consider a championship move, to be honest, unless someone was going to pay him good wages. But he's not going to take a cut of 75% on his wages to come and play for Norwich. I don't think that's even a starter.
Matthew Johnson, I own the same shirts as both David and Michael. That's alarming.
Really?
I like
oh yeah, we are a bit matching, aren't we?
Similar. So, you're a bit more green than me. In my blue shirt.
We do this quite a lot, don't we?
We should have sent a memo.
We do shop at separate places as well. So I don't know how we manage it.
I don't even know where I get my clothes from these days. Barry Newman, do you think Norwich has lost its appeal to new players as poor last 2 seasons, and we are now not one of the bigger clubs in the league? I mean,
it's not lost its appeal for German players.
I think to come and play at Carrow Road, full houses, it gets trotted out as a cliche, but it's true. It's big crowds, big atmosphere. It's a big club in the Championship, so that hasn't changed. And there's probably that drive that if you turn up somewhere and you can help get it going, then you can make a real name and an impact for yourself. So no, but I think it's just in terms of the finances that Norwich can't really attract the players.
That's what it comes down to with players at the end of the day. The majority of the time, as David McNally always used to say, what was the line he came out with? It's not whether they want to live on the unthanked road or not, it's how much we're going to pay them. I'm paraphrasing.
There you go. That's close enough, Dave. Lewis Plummer, Emir Buendia, I'm expecting him to join up for pre-season training next week because he had a late finish to his season. Spencer Copland wants Remy Matthews given a running goal, and he likes Jamal Lewis too. Matthew Johnson, an official change in captain, with Edo's place rightly under scrutiny, Martin on the outside and Wes gone. Get the feeling Tetty may get the armband. Personally, I'd want Hanley. Yeah, Tetty wore it a lot last year, and I could see that. Someone already suggested Morris Leitner should be captain, probably because they quite like him as a player. But
I think everybody most people have nailed their flag to the mast for Grant Hanley on the captain issue, and as much as Alex Tetty makes sense, Grant Hanley's probably going to be one of the first names on the team sheet as long as he's fit. So for me, if it's not going to be Ivo Pinto, and it'll be interesting to find out from Daniel what his thoughts are on captaincy, whether he's that worried about who wears the armband. That's something we can address with him during pre-season, but for me, Grant Hanley.
Joachim Broberg, where is Freezer's in-out sheet? It's just over there.
I might have to restart that because it's getting a bit full, getting a bit busy, isn't it?
I don't think you can do that.
Might need a second draft. I'm afraid the under-23s who were released may have to get bumped off, otherwise, well, not literally, just off the board to make a bit of space.
I think that's cheating if you restart, but there we go.
Yeah.
I like causing you problems. That's fine.
I need a giant iPad ready.
Giant iPad. We can't afford those. Ben Woodward, what's happening with Yannick? What a question. Last few now, so if you've got any others, get them in, because my sandwich is probably warm by now. Yannick, Wigan interested, according to Alan Nixon. Alan Nixon's getting some freaking plugs here, isn't he? As far as
probably explain
I
who he
know,
is.
He's a journalist at The Sun.
Yeah.
He reluctantly tweets a lot for someone who's reluctant about it. What I personally heard, I think Wigan did inquire, and that would obviously be going back to his former club, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen as things stand at the moment. He's on a lot of money, so
they want him, don't they? But whether it would happen or not, it's another thing. And he also did offend quite a lot of their fans with some of his comments when he joined Norwich, didn't he? If we go back 18 months, he said
he
something
wrote a
about,
nice open letter.
He did. He grovelled afterwards, but he'd said that he didn't enjoy playing in front of empty stadiums, did he?
No.
So, whether they'd have him back.
I mean, come on, Wigan fans, have a look around. I mean, it's a fact, not an opinion.
But I believe Wigan have got new ownership this year, so they may have a bit more money.
Probably finish above Norwich.
But I don't think Yannick's going to feature much here this year, and neither do I think he should.
Fair point. Anthony Balls, what's your opinion? Oh, any relation? Any relation to Ed? Anthony, let us know. What's your opinion on Ivo Pinto? Personally believe his defending is woeful, but he brings loads of energy to the side. Do we at least get cover or improve in that position?
Is this Pinto?
Yeah, some people may rate him more than myself. Max Aarons has signed a deal, so he's going to be backup. Personally, I think it's contrary to other people's view, but this idea that Harrison Reed was a miles better right back than Ivo Pinto, I never really bought. I thought he was a good stand-in, but I would have always had Ivo in the side. I didn't think his defending is that bad, personally, at championship level, and I think he does offer a lot more going forward, and a lot more energy and pace. So to me, he would be starting. But then I don't know if everyone, well, I know most people don't agree with that, to be honest. And Norwich do still need a new right back, I think.
I would like to see another right back come in, and I'd be interested to hear Ivo's thoughts, given that they went after Tyrone Abiui in January, who has been playing for Nigeria at the World Cup, has now gone to Benfica, and the other lad who was linked with the I can't remember his name.
Who's that? The one I
from
wrote
Den
about.
Haag, yes.
From Twente.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Hidda Turavest.
Have I got that in front of me?
Hidda Turavest, who Norwich were pursued quite heavily, I think, over the summer. They were, or over the second half of last season, they were really hoping of signing him. Then Udinese came in.
Which is fair enough, you know. Benfica and Udinese are going to beat Norwich City to a player. That's pretty obvious. But yeah, I think another right back needs to come in. I'd maybe look at a Mark Tierney type if you want to go back 7-8 years and get a good...
English would be a good idea, probably, at the moment.
An English good right back. Somebody who's solid. Maybe you could say, like Ivo isn't. I personally think Max Aarons is possibly going to need a loan before he's ready for the Championship, from what I've seen of him, but I think there's real potential there. But I don't think he's quite ready to be this season's Jamal Lewis. I may be proved wrong. I quite hope I'm proved wrong, but I think he might need a loan, yeah.
He did look good last season, both at under-23s and 18s, I thought. Matthew Johnson just reiterates that he does like our shirts. It wasn't a diss.
That's fine.
Thank you, Matthew.
I think we better wrap, because I think my battery may be being
They're going to die.
drained.
All right. Mark Larter, Millwall convinced they've won the race for Ben Marshall. Any news? I know that there was a lot of teams involved in chasing Ben Marshall. It wouldn't surprise me if I think that's his preference as well to go there. So, yes, I think Norwich might prove a stretch, which is possibly why the Harry Wilson stuff popped up as well. Mike Taylor has posted a really long message.
Harry
so
Wilson would
good.
be a cracking signing, by the way.
He was
Looked
very good
for
Hull, didn't he? Mike Taylor, Leitner needs to be in the right context, but an excellent proposition. You can read Mike Taylor's full message on the feed under the live video, and I reckon we're pretty much there. He does add revisit Elliot Bennett as a right wing back or Chrissy Martin up top. I think Chrissy Martin is too old now.
Yes, I think the age,
play him.
age
Probably same with
profiles.
Elliot. I don't know how old Elliot is now.
He's about 30, isn't he? And he's had very serious knee problems. So
and a good season at Blackburn though, back to his best, I think.
Yeah, it'd be good to see. I hope he does well, but yeah, I can't see him coming back to Norwich. I should just emphasise that by saying that my battery's draining, I don't mean me personally, but the phone that we are using to film this on. So we should probably wrap it there. I do just want to give a quick plug to, if you've not seen it already, Mr. Chris Lakey, our head of sport, wonderful photo on his Twitter account today of the biggest fruitcake you have ever seen.
Not only the biggest, the tastiest.
It was very nice. Yes.
Brilliant stuff.
But I think for now we can. I think we've covered just about.
Yeah.
I don't think we've covered every issue because there is so many.
We'll have to do another one. We'll have to do another one soon.
I think we'll probably do another podcast soonish as well, won't we?
Yeah, we'll do a World Cup pod.
Keep an eye out for that.
That's what I'm now going to prepare that now. PinkUn.com for the latest transfer news, of course. If anything breaks first, you'll probably see it on there.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, folks.